Okay, let's take a look at these rocker switches. We got a few of them here. For all intents and purposes, these two are pretty much identical how to wire them up. As you can see, we got a few blades back here, but it will be the same. These ones are simply on off. Simple enough. This is a 2-action switch or double throw switch. Yeah. There is illumination here and here. When you buy these switches, I recommend when you see the photos of them being sold, usually they have wiring schematics to go with them in the picture. Sometimes it might be down in the description below. Alternatively, you might be go to the manufacturer's website and find the wiring schematic from there. These are cheap Chinesium switches, so take it with a grain of salt. But generically speaking, they usually will come in the selling listing, either on eBay or Amazon, what all these terminals will go to. Now, for these Nylite brands, it usually is terminal 7 and 8, which is here and here, the top end. Usually that's your ground terminals, and these two are actually shared. These are connected here and connected here. They're connected internally. Now, having messed with these switches long enough, I know on the wiring schematics from memory, basically. Terminal number 7 is your ground terminal, which it looks like it's that guy right there. They do have numbers stamped on them. Same way with this guy right here, this peach-colored wire going to terminal 7. That is the ground wire for this switch. So, long story short, make sure with whatever switch you're hooking up, make sure you know which is the ground, which one's the positive, so you don't burn out your LEDs. So let's try with the beacon here first. In this particular case, pins 7 and 8 are actually grounded together if you checked it with an ohm meter, but for consistency, we'll just use number 7 terminal as our ground. This middle terminal here in the middle of the switch is our input, our 12 volts input. Again, I consulted the wiring diagram, and that's what it says, so that's what we do. This far terminal over here will simply make this little bar glow at all times. And this guy right here is our load that'll go to our relay, our 12 volt switch to turn the relays on and off. That'll be this guy. Now it's all wired up. Let's go ahead and put some juice to it. Okay, that right there will light up the little bar here. Let me turn the light off so you guys can see this a little bit better. You can see that little bar is lit up at all times. That's that bar switch, if you will. Now, if I click on this, if I use this wire, see how that's illuminated? That should only be illuminated when you push the switch to turn the beacons on. So we know that's the wrong wire, which means the last wire must be the correct wire. Yes. So you can actually hook these two up. So now it glows. We turn it on, turn our beacons on, the switch will light up. Perfect. So that must mean that the only wire left goes to our relay. Okay, I'll walk you through all this again. But make sure everything works. We got a little glowing light at all times so you know where to hit the switch. When we push the switch, there you go. The 12 volts is sent to there. And now we can control our beacons on our game controller side. Now, I will say initially, I was kind of disappointed at how dim these LEDs are. But you also have to remember, this is an LED light bar, meaning you're probably going to only use this at night. So when you're inside of an actual automobile, it's pretty dark. When you hit it, you really don't want to see things blazing inside of the cab. You want to see outside of the cab. So this is why it may not be too terribly bright under a normal lighted room. So if it's a little bit dimmer, just think about the logic on that. Have it a little darker inside the cab so you can see outside. It's probably actually by design and not because it's a real cheap LED. But now that we're controlling this, let's show you again how I wired the switch up. We have the ground on top. I'm using terminal 8 here. Your switch may vary, just to let you know. Sometimes they share common grounds. Sometimes you connect to either or, sometimes not. The lower terminal on the bottom end, the bottommost terminal, for this particular switch. Goes to that's our 12 volts switched on and off. And that 12 volts goes into here to turn our relays on and off. The middle terminal here is our 12 volts input for the whole switch. And this is 12 volts just to illuminate the little bar you see down here that you can drive at night. And you can hook up the 12 volts input as well as the 12 volt always on illumination as well. You can tie those in together. I'm just smashing them with a jumper wire, but obviously, you know, wire nuts or your crimp together nuts too. You know, that'll work. Just crimp them together. This is a 3-1, so that'll all fit in there. I don't want to tear up my alligator clip for you guys, because you guys get the general idea. So now that we have our illuminated switch controlling our relay, we can now actually program this for beacons. Yes. Nothing has been modified on the game controller. Your common is your middle wire, the big thick wire you see here. That goes into your ground plane on your controller board. Whichever side that is for the Leo boards is on the outside. I'll show you how to find that out earlier. And then you have switch 1 and switch 2. This would be the white and gray wires I've wired up going onto the inside of the board. Goes to the inside of the board here, and that is where your actual switch command goes to ground out the pins to signal to the controller that, hey, I'm pushing a button. So again, pretty easy wiring. Nothing too terribly complicated, I hope, for you guys. I don't mean to insult you guys, but this is fairly basic, I hope, for you guys. Again, consult the wiring diagram on here. Let's go ahead and hook this up to some beacons for funsies and see how that looks. Okay, let's go options, keyboards, bindings. We'll go to hazard. Hazard warning. Here we go. We're ready to rock and roll. No, we don't want hazards. We want beacons. Oh, we want beacons. Give me some beacons. Beacons. All the beacons. You guys want Stockwell Gloss? This is a shout out to Stockwell Gloss. Right. So let's go ahead and just click on beacons, primary home. Switch, we'll use the hold command for that. Okay. Turn that on, there, and the secondary. Oops, I didn't do that right. Secondary, we do the opposite. We turn the switch on or off. Click on secondary, and then switch it the other way. And there's button 4. Excellent. Then we'll switch to set it. Cool. Now, let's see if it works. Drive. Ooh, I'm driving my life away. Oh, beacons, you can barely see it. Let's back up a little bit. Actually, let's go find a dark space. Let's go find a dark space. Oh, shoot. Why aren't we stopping? Come on, turd. Well, that's right. My motor wheel wasn't hooked up. That's okay. That's all right. That's fine. We'll turn that light off so you guys can actually see the switch illuminate or not illuminate. Let's take a look here and see what we got. So, okay, you see? It's backwards. Turn the switch off, beacons are on. Turn the switch on, beacons are off. Now, if your button is wired backwards, it's not a big deal. This applies to latching switches only, not the momentary press. Just for latching buttons only. If you notice that your button is backwards, meaning the button's on, but nothing's happening in here, the wire is wired up backwards. So this would be on and that would be off. If you notice that it's flip-flop backwards, really easy to fix. Hit escape, throw your switch the other way, and boom. That fixes it. You don't have to reprogram or rewire it. It's really that easy. And if that doesn't work, then you'll have to go in and swap your primary and secondary key bindings. But before you do that, try that trick first. If your button or switch is backwards, just hit escape, flip it the other way, hit escape again, and that should flip it right back up again. Hazard warning switch. Yay! The ground should still be the same on these particular brand of switches. It's usually terminal 8. Here's your ground. Now let's test we got one positive, actually, before I even do that. Since I know that this is ground on these switches, we can actually touch these on these sides. So, that doesn't do anything at all. So that might be output. I'm not certain. Am I even plugged in yet? Okay, see? Okay, there we go. Now, so here's something a little bit fun. These particular ground terminals do not touch each other, but they need to both be hooked up because it's only supplying one ground to one of the LEDs, I believe. Now I can touch all these wires back here hot because I know that these two terminals up here are both the ground wires. So as long as I keep the ground away from the hot, I can touch any one of these hot for this particular switch, and I can figure out which one's the illumination, which one's the input that goes to the relay, and which other one just lights up our cute little light bar. So apparently, now see, this should be making the light bar show up, but it's not. However, if I just short the wire out on top here, you see how it turns on now? Like that. So this particular switch is a little bit more funky. There you go. So I have to have both of those jumped, which is not a big deal. I just need to make another jump lead, I guess. So apparently both terminals on this particular switch needs to be grounded. Okay, whatever. Glad I'm doing this for you guys. Even though it's the same company, I think, that makes both these switches. I guess sometimes they're just a little bit different. Oh. Oh. Scared me there for a second. I thought he shorted something out. I just activated it. Whoo! Whee! That got me going. So for this particular switch, both these sides need to be grounded out. And now we can see we've got illumination. Okay, now with our grounds hooked up, we know that this one is our 12-volt input, because when we hook it up, we have an on and off indicating that we are turning on and off our hazard. Our hazard indicators turn on. So that means that this is our input, because it's behaving correctly. The other terminal is our light bar, which means this guy is our output to our relay. Confused? Okay, let's break this down a little bit more. So in order for this to work, this is our 12 volts input, and this is our switched output. And then this terminal over here just simply makes the bar glow 24/7. So now we're going to go ahead and wire that up. Hook up our 3 wires here. Yeah, see, that was a hot wire. That was a hot wire. I almost touched that to ground. In fact, I did, because my power supply died. I gotta reset it. Got the my power supply resetted. You just have to unplug it for 30 seconds or a minute, and I must have shorted something. It's not the first time I've done that. So this would be our 12 volts, illuminated all the time light bar, the little indicator light or position light, I guess. I don't know. And our 12 volts input. We can just tie those together. And now we have illumination, and if we hit the switch, not only does it turn our indicator on, but it also turns on our relay. So because now we never really touched the other side, it's still connected to the same switches, let's go ahead and program this just for funsies. It's pretty much rinse and repeat, guys. Go to keyboards and interface and go to hazard warning. Okay. Now we see button 5 being held. Yes, that's fine. And then we'll flip the switch first, and then we'll click on the second column to activate the other button. That's button 4. Excellent. Turn that off to set it. Perfect. Let's hit drive and see what we got now. All right, see how my hazards are backwards again? There you go. My hazards are wired up backwards, which is fine. That is not a big deal. Now, if your button is wired backwards, it's not a big deal. This applies to latching switches only, not the momentary press. Just for latching buttons only. If you notice that your button is backwards, meaning the button's on, but nothing's happening in here, the wire is wired up backwards. So this would be on, and that would be off. If you notice that it's flip-flop backwards, really easy to fix. Hit escape, throw your switch the other way, and boom. That fixes it. You don't have to reprogram it or rewire it. It's really that easy. And if that doesn't work, then you'll have to go in and swap your primary and secondary key bindings. But before you do that, try that trick first. If your button or switch is backwards, just hit escape, flip it the other way, hit escape again, and that should flip it right back up again. Let us do this little humdinger. Now this is kind of interesting. We've got similar glowy lights here, but it's a little bit different. This one came with a little wiring harness, if you will, or terminals. This one's a little bit different. Again, the top terminals for these nightlight switches usually seems to be ground. This peach is actually the ground on here. Again, consult the wiring manual before you buy a switch. I strongly suggest you make sure it has a wiring manual, or at the very least we got terminals that are labeled at the very least. But make sure you do due diligence first, because I don't want to doing this tutorial. I am feeling that there's going to be a lot of questions. What about this particular switch? What about this particular switch? Just try, before you hound me, try and make sure you buy a switch that's got a wiring diagrams on there, or in the reviews. Check those, or the manufacturer. Because I know I'm still going to get hounded by questions. Which if I can, I'll try. But I do have a full-time job. I'd love to do this YouTube stuff full-time, but not there yet, but one day perhaps. So this one, consulting the wire diagram, is your ground switched. It's similar to the other ones where it's the 7 and 8 on top. So we're going to go ahead and hook that up to ground. You see, these ones come with spade terminals, so they did half the work for you already. I'll hook this up to a wire so it's not too jankety here. I don't know if this will work or not, but there we go. All right, so we got a ground wire. Now, if I remember right, this red wire is your 12 volts input to the switch, and this is switch 1, and this is switch 2 over here. Remember, you got bare terminals here, so don't go shorting these out. So right now, for all these switches, we just have 2 switches. We have our ground switch, which is the earth here. And we've got our hot going into the switch for our input. Now, if I remember right, these should glow whenever we press the actual function button. And they do. This one doesn't have a back glow light at all. It'll be dark when you're driving it. There's a lot of different switches, a lot of variations. I'm trying to show you guys a lot of different switches you can buy, how to hook them up correctly, and inspire you guys to figure out, okay, I got this switch. I should be able to hook it up this way. That's why I'm trying to show you guys. There's a lot of, I can't buy all the switches in the universe because I go bankrupt. So we have 2 different switches. So what I'm thinking here is we're going to wire this up for our windows up and windows down. Windows up, windows down. This goes to one relay, this goes to another relay. Okay, so now we have it all wired up. We have our ground wire coming from our power supply. We have our positive 12 volts going into the switch. Again, consult your wiring diagram. So, ground for the switch, the hot for the 12 volts input. Then we have 12 volts output here and 12 volts output here. Function wires 1 and 2 get fed into our relay board for relay 1 and relay 2 respectively, function 1, function 2. Now when we push our button, we see it activates one relay, hit the switch, it activates a different relay. Okay, so therefore you know now, if you got this far, you should be able to see your relay LED indicators light up, 2 different relays. Now, so of course we have our typical grounding wires going to the common terminal, which is the middle terminal on this board, to our relays. That's a common wire connected to the outside pins on the Leo board, because that's all the ground pin wires. And then we simply have one switch for the up and one switch for the down coming out of each relay board. So these are only activated, only grounded out when we hit the button momentarily. Just hooked it up to next to our ground pins respectively on our Leo board. So we're going to click on here, left window open. So here, that would be rolled down. It's now there's no hold features on this particular command set. And then close it, we just push up on the switch. And it registered it just fine. Okay. I should be able to roll up and roll down our windows. Yeah, here we go. Hey, look at that. Roll down, and yeah, this does have the auto roll down and auto roll up. But if you want to manually, if you guys are on SimHub and you got the fans installed that blows wind in your face, you know, you can manually adjust it as well. So if you want it only down halfway, just click any mode to stop the window in progress. So if it's rolling down, you can hit the up to stop it, so on and so forth thereof. So that is how, if you hold it down long enough, it'll actually go into manual mode, as you can see. Now it's in manual mode. Pretty cool, huh? I don't know if you can double tap it to get it to roll up. There you go. Now it automatically rolls up. Anyways, that's how you hook up some windows in American Truck Simulator and Euro Truck Simulator 2. Let me go ahead and disassemble this, and we'll get to this Ford Gang switch panel.